We'll take a walk into the garage. This is usually where the water heaters are located, whether it's a tankless water heater or a tank heater. In this case, it's a tank water heater. It's made, this particular brand is Bradford White. All water heaters are different. You can get water heaters from professional supply houses, or you can get them from home box stores. The only difference is the grade. I mean, some of them, this is a high grade heater. We don't put this particular brand in just because it's the way we do our maintenance agreements. It's kind of hard to get to a certain part on here to maintenance it. So we choose not to use this part, but all the other heaters that come in, they have a bolt on top that you can pull out, something called an anode rod. That anode rod protects the heater from breaking down. It's a sacrificial rod. So anything that goes into the tank that is like sediment or anything like that, it bonds to the anode rod and keeps it from eating the tank. So this particular model, you have to pull a part off of here, disconnect the heater almost completely to get it out. So that's why we choose not to use it. But this particular heater is an electric. You have your thermostats and your elements are in these chambers right here. All your electricals in there. It's best that any repairs or home improvements, this kind of stuff, that you leave it to us to do, because it's high voltage. It can do you damage. So you want to stay away from that. If you need to adjust the temperature on it, it's really best that you call us and have us come out there and do it, unless you're really comfortable with electricity. Another thing you want to watch for is you have a TMP. It's a temperature pressure valve on top of the tank. This should never leak. It should never be dripping. If it's dripping, you have a problem. This particular homeowner has flex lines coming to it, and they're legal flex lines, except the only thing about them is that any flex line that you'll see should have a tag still on it. They should not pull the tag off of them. Tells them what it is, if it's approved, and that kind of thing. So we would recommend that this get piped in hard, or you replace them with a copper flex line with the tag on it. Also in this heater, he has a pressure reducing valve. This is why he has 80 psi on the house. He's reducing it back down. Whenever you have a pressure reducing valve on your house, it looks like a little bell and it has a screw and a nut on the end of it right there. You see, it's common in most houses in Murfreesboro and most houses really in Davidson County and all over. When you see one like this, some codes say you have to have it, some say you don't have to have it, but an expansion tank needs to be installed. Manufacturer recommends it. And the reason why is that when the pressure builds in this thing, it's called thermal expansion. It expands and it has nowhere to go. So what it does, and it's only a cup full of water, but it causes this TMP to start dripping. Pressure exceeds the amount, this starts dripping. Whenever you pop these, it gets a little bit of sediment on the seat, so it can continue to leak and continue to run. So that's why we recommend that you put an expansion tank on. He really needs to have one put on here. They also call them bounce tanks. It prevents the tanks, when tanks wear out, you got to think this thing is heating up, and it expands, and then it cools off, and it contracts. So it's doing this every time it cycles. And over the period of 8 years, 10 years, the thing will start leaking. The bounce tank takes a little bit of that pressure off the tank because it has a rubber bladder in it, water on one side, air on the other. And as the pressure rises, it pushes it. It's like a bounce, and it actually takes the pressure off the tank, or takes the beating of the tank off of it. When we do a maintenance on it, we hook a hose to the bottom. We run it out the front, out the door, usually in an area where, not on the driveway, usually in the grass. And with full pressure on it, we open it up and we let we force the water out of the tank. And what that does is that gets all the sediment that is built up in the bottom of it out, or on the elements out. We thoroughly check the elements to make sure that we have good connections. There's no loose lugs, wire nuts that have come loose. If it's a gas heater, we check for leaks. We check for draft to make sure it's drafting like it's supposed to. It's important to have that done. Power coming into it, same thing. We make sure that there's no loose wire nuts, because over time, just like anything else, it loosens up. A loose wire nut can cause a short. Yeah, the manufacturer recommends on pretty much all heaters, that's tankless and tanked heaters, once a year that you have to have it flushed. A tank heater, like I said, not a big deal. Hook a hose to it, full pressure out the front, out the back, to the grass. On a tankless heater, it's a little bit different. On a tankless heater, if you have a house that you just bought, and there's a thing that looks like a little suitcase hanging on the side of the house, they're little, and a vent coming out of the top of it. When the tank itself is needing to be flushed, you hook a hose to it, goes into a bucket with a pump. We use vinegar or we use a descaler, and it removes all the buildup inside the heat exchanger. Well, the heat exchanger, if you don't remove the scale from the inside of it, just like not removing it from a tank heater, it shortens the life of the heat of the tankless. The heat builds up inside the heat exchanger. It's not transferring to the water because of the sediment. It overcooks the sensors because it has sensors all over it. It fails prematurely. So tanklesses are a great idea. They're a great addition to your house. It's good if you have one on your house because you're going to save a lot of money on your gas bill. Other than that, this is pretty much it on the heater.
So if you add a water